What should people seriously stop buying? Does anyone else notice that those Herbalife smoothie places keep popping up all over, but they are so shady about it? They look like average mom-and-pop smoothie places with no Herbalife branding on the outside or anywhere inside, but then they start making your smoothie and bam, they pull out the Herbalife powder. My dad used to be involved with them to the point where most of the stuff we ate and drank was Herbalife brand, Herbalife smoothies, bars, you name it. It was in the goddamn house. He stopped after one of their products gave my mom stomach ulcers that nearly landed her in the emergency room multiple times. Also, I'm pretty sure they got sued or something, but my mind is a bit fuzzy on that. My cousin was so obsessed with Herbalife, it ruled her whole life for like 3 years. Every time I saw her she was bringing it up, telling me it changed her life, etc. After it all came crashing down, she reconnected with religion. Every time I saw her she would tell me how she would pray for me, and that I should ask for the Lord for guidance, etc. Saw her last week. She thinks COVID is a hoax and was on her way to a protest about it. Why do I feel it's all the same shit with these people? I'm guessing it will be kinda next. Lol cleanses. Anyone that's done colonoscopy prep knows how much bullshit that is. Go drink like 5 caps of Relax and I promise you'll be shitting clear water by the end of the night, and you'll feel a whole lot better than if you tried the cleanse diet. A. The presence of fecal matter is absolutely critical to the health of your gut biome. B. It's the opposite of toxic if it remains in your bowels. The majority of serotonin in your body is produced in your gut, and a normal functioning GI tract, poo included, is vital to that production. C. It's incredibly insulting to the millions of people with Crohn's disease that would give anything to be able to hold on to any waste long enough to need a cleanse. Only if you're in the US though. Similar pink breast cancer awareness and fundraising items in Canada and elsewhere are actually donated to vetted cancer societies, and if their donations don't go to research, they go to supporting the quality of life for people who are undergoing treatment. Edit. Similarly, the Salvation Army in the US is notorious for being vehemently homophobic and turning LGBT people out onto the street rather than help them, so people are discouraged from donating to their causes around Christmas. But that isn't the case in Canada. The Canadian Salvation Army is forbidden by law from that discrimination, so you can happily give your change to those Santas at the mall and know they aren't trying to kill gay homeless people. Edit. Here comes the Defense Brigade for the common racket and whatever Christian charities, I guess lol. Equally not sexy, but I've been getting into heat pump appliances lately. I got a heat pump hot water tank a year or 2 ago. It was a bit more expensive up front, but is massively more efficient than a conventional water heater. Next up is my dryer. My current dryer is about 15 years old, still works reasonably well, but has literally one setting: make it hot, no fluff cycle, or low heat, or anything remotely fancy. It makes hot air. The end. I'll probably be replacing it in a year or 2, and a ventless heat pump dryer is currently on my radar. Not only is the device itself significantly more efficient, but it will let me plug up the vent hole in my wall, hence, ventless, and thus make the general heating and cooling of my house more efficient. They're awful. I knew a family who ran one about the time puppy mills were gaining national notoriety. She had way too many dogs locked in these cyclone fence prison cells on a big concrete slab, and she had a run-down single-wide trailer on the back of her property filled with even more dogs. It was awful. So many different breeds, so many dogs, and it was this lady, her husband and 2 kids living there and caring for those dogs. There was no way the animals got the attention they needed. They easily numbered over 10 dogs per person there at any given time. Luckily, she got shut down by the state. The story even made the local paper. I stopped buying face washes and stuff that have those and don't miss them at all. They didn't make the products work, feel any better. I feel like they were just there for aesthetic purposes and give you the idea that these microbeads are bursting with great ingredients that are amazing for your skin, or whatever the promises were. I now do more research into products rather than letting ads tell me what my skin needs, will work best. In 2010 I had kidney cancer, and this girl I went to high school with, that I barely knew and hadn't spoken to in about 12 years, heard about me being sick, so sent me a DM pretending to give a shit before launching into her speech about how living essential oils would be the only thing that saves my life, like I should not have medical intervention in any way and should only use essential oils. Even though I kept telling her yeah no, I'm going to go with the treatment plan from doctors. She just wanted to keep telling me that it was all a big pharma scam and essential oils are nature's natural remedies. After she got it through her head that I wouldn't be foregoing all medical care and just using her essential oils, she then tried to sell me on her second boss babe swindle Herbalife. That's when I blocked her, and I thankfully haven't heard from her since. I can't understand the people that buy holiday decor every single year. Are people buying fake trees and tossing them every year and needing a new one? Same with ornaments and whatnot. Obviously people move out of their parents or they need to replace ornaments if they're broken or something, but the amount in stores does not add up to me. Why so much new stuff every year? You think adult games are bad? Sweet Mother Judas, our toddler and under 10 games worse. My wife downloaded a Hot Wheels game for my son for his Amazon Fire tablet. It's riddled with microtransactions and in-game ads that you can't skip, trying to get kids to download the next game. It's not just toxic, it's fucking predatory. There needs to be laws banning microtransactions in all formats of all digital entertainment. I wouldn't have known about this either if he never handed it to me to help him build a tough puzzle track. They buried that so you don't see it when you get the game for them. It's disgusting. Ugh, yes. I'm a vet tech and I'm so sick of seeing inhumane traits bred into a lot of dogs. On top of that, golden retrievers have become cancer machines. Some of the worst skin and food allergy dogs we treat are purebred poodles, and other purebred dogs owners spent a couple grand on. Right now there's a 4-month-old dog, a Argentino flown in from like Puerto Rico. Cost them at least $5,000 for the dog. He's bilateral crypturgid and keeps asking what we can do for him so he can stud. We keep explaining even if he ends up not being sterile. Crypturgidism is genetic and not something anyone should be breeding. He found a reproductive specialist that is supposedly a veterinarian who is willing to do a procedure to attempt testicular descent. I just can't even fathom any vet in their right mind would be willing to do this. It should be classified as abuse. It's a serious welfare issue that needs to be addressed. This applies to exotic animals, too, and I wish we talked about it more. There is so much room for improvement in dog breeding, but there is at least some awareness about puppy mills. You can go into big box pet stores and buy exotics that were likely bred in equally terrible conditions, and I feel like we barely talk about it. Budgies shouldn't cost $20. Their genetics are just wrecked from awful breeding practices, and I have seen so many with tumors or liver problems. They should live 10-15 years. But many die before they're 5. I rescued 2 budgies in 2013. One died of liver disease in March despite all my attempts to keep his weight down and his diet healthy. The other has a tumor that requires a shot from the vet every 3 weeks to keep under control. I absolutely adore this bird and I will do everything I can to keep his quality of life high, but it is a lot of work. These animals deserve so much better. I'm an undertaker that just got home from a long day. I'm tired and want to play video games. I usually keep on scrolling when I encounter one of these posts, but for once I think I have enough energy left for a long-winded one. Sealer caskets are usually not necessary. Sometimes it's required if you're being entombed, in a crypt, in a mausoleum, being shipped by airline back home, or having a service where the changes that take hold of us after we pass have very much taken hold of you. Having expensive casket with silky insides is never necessary. It's all well and good to say just bury me in a blanket in a hole, toss me in the ocean, trash, do sky burial, build a pyre, etc. But sadly there tend to be regulations about these things. Donating to science hardly ever happens, because when we're dead, we're usually old, and when we're old, our organs are too. They don't tend to be viable, and the only part of you likely to be harvested is your corneas. Composting is still a ways off from being a typical option. So is alkaline hydrolysis, which is interesting. Anyway, for more information on who decides what after you die and about undertaking, please read this excerpt from The Undertaking, a book they thankfully make us read in mortuary college, by poet and undertaker Thomas Lynch, who was a mentor to me though we've never even met. The central theme is this: once you are dead, put your feet up, call it a day, and let the old man or the missus or the thankless kids decide whether you are to be buried or burned or blown out of a cannon or left to dry out in a ditch. It's not your day to watch it, because the dead don't care. From what I hear, it's the wave of the future. I definitely know some electronics like printers or software packages that will become unusable unless you pay the recurring subscription. From the part of the people who make and sell the product, it's the holy grail. The customers not only pay you once for the equipment, but they gotta keep paying you to actually use it. It's the phoneization of all our electronics. I fully expect everything to be like that in 10 years. Buy a car, okay, but you need to pay the monthly subscription for the software updates and patches needed for it to actually drive. Buy a coffee maker. If you don't pay the monthly software subscription, you will just have an expensive pitcher. Their salespeople are the worst. I added my tiny business on there, more so I could have another Google result rather than using it as a referral source in itself. The next day I got a voicemail from their team that made it sound like there was something wrong with my business listing. I returned the call to see what needed to be fixed. He then was extremely pushy to have me pay to be one of the ads you see at the top of Yelp searches. I said kindly I'm starting small and focusing on a different area of advertising. He wouldn't let me get off the phone and had a more harassing tone as the call went on. He basically said my business will fail if no one can find me on Yelp, and in order to that I need the premium features. I had to hang up on him. It was so toxic and really got under my skin. Then I got all these follow-up calls saying there seemed to be a disconnect between us. I am really trying to help your business grow. Oh yeah? Then why do you have to harass people to help them? Any sort of animal, mostly dogs, which has been selectively bred for features which also cause serious medical issues. Pugs and Frenchies come to mind right away. Bully for you that you have your super adorable designer dog. At best you have a dog who lives a life of discomfort for your vanity and costs a small fortune in vet bills, and at worst people don't realize what they are in for and then bail due to the difficulty, financial or otherwise. I'm happy there are many now breeding these types of animals in the other direction and trying to draw attention to the issue. Those weird little disability, sickness awareness things like mugs, shirts, and so on. Speaking as a disabled person, not only is it insulting to have the very thing that has been plaguing us stamped on a cute little kid's cup, but it's also needless waste of resources and money making those items that'll probably be used for a day at most. If people really care, just donate. It's good for the environment, and it'll have more of an effect because less is used to make items. People need to stop buying anything they don't need. Most products create the want and then fill it, and the only purpose of the product is to take money from you and give it to the distributors. I go to estate sales all the time and I see tons of crap that people buy and never use. You do not need the latest version of a Vegamatic. You will never use a slap chopper. The set and forget rotisserie will be used to cook one chicken and then it will go to your basement to be set down and forgotten. That one chicken cost you a lot to cook. You do not need a snow globe from the gift shop to commemorate your trip to the world's biggest ball of wine. It is true that a lot of people make a living making, selling, and shipping this stuff, but they need to retool and make useful things. My parents bought one of those rotisserie machines and it has been so handy. The things lasted nearly 20 years of monthly use. They'd always do the Christmas prime rib in it. But I agree, the useless kitchen gadgets are a nightmare. This one was a success, but cleaning out their garage has been just a graveyard of decades-old crap. Most recently my mom bought these push whisks that are easier on the wrist, but one fell apart on its second use, into the bin. I have a real issue with long-term storage units for most people. I understand that storage units have some value, if you're in a situation where you're moving but have a gap without a permanent place to stay, or if you're going to be traveling for a few months or a year and get out of your current rental, as examples of good uses of those places. But I know tons of people who have a whole house, apartment and then rent a storage unit as well for years, and they find it completely baffling. Storage units aren't cheap, but most of what gets stored in them often is. It often works out in my mind that by the time you've paid to store it long enough to actually use it or move it to its final resting place, you could frequently have bought the contents of the storage unit several times over. Main thing that comes to mind for me is batteries. I paid for some decent rechargeable batteries back at the start of 2015 as I was going through 1 AAA batteries a week, and it's honestly saved so much money and waste. I've literally just recycled 2 last month, the first 2 to die in 6 years. The other thing that stands out for me is Samsung products. I feel their quality control has declined over the last few years and I've totally lost faith in their products. The S4, S5, Tab S2 have all had battery and software issues. The A70 had a USB-C subboard module issue, had 3 repaired with the same issue, and the Tab E had a SIM card, micro SD card slot issue. The only one I hadn't had software issues with was the A70, but saying that the repairs were naff. There are some things that may be necessary to avoid worse things later on. When I was working 54-hour weeks, I could barely gather the energy to cook for myself, let alone prep the ingredients. Pre-prepped things were a lifesaver, and I avoided living off of takeout, which would have caused several more problems than just packaged pre-prepped foods. A lot of these environmentally conscious comments are right. The world as a whole needs to rely less on a lot of these things which are killing the planet. But some people have no choice, or at least no easy choice. We don't have the time, or the energy, or the capacity, to hunt down ethically packaged, or package-free, items. We're stuck pumping plastic straight into the ocean and it feels so awful, soul-crushing, but what can we do? I'm so tired of feeling like a problem because capitalism has worn me thin and wrapped all the energy-saving solutions in plastic. So either I die of exhaustion, or the environment dies of suffocation, and corporations benefit either way. I'm tired of this place. I have what I think is a fair reason to actually do this. Every time I cut up a watermelon, I cut my fingers somehow, like tiny nicks here and there, but it happens every time. Watermelons are slippery. The final time I cut up a watermelon, I slipped and badly cut open my pointer finger, which is still healing. I can only get pre-cut watermelon anymore because this was pretty traumatic. It was very bloody, and nope, I will only do this with watermelon though. I promise, I don't eat other melons, big things that need to be cut up, so that's not an issue. But watermelon is one of my favorite foods. You're almost correct about your conspiracy. So publishing is a hellhole industry and there's a lot of moving parts. They don't like to sell books that are too long because then people will be intimidated and won't read them. But also, if you get to a certain point in your publishing career where you're a cash cow, they basically let you do whatever the fuck you want. 10 books? Sure, we won't even edit you much because last time we told you to maybe cut something you hissed like a snake and told us to fuck off. Have fun. Can't wait to make an ass ton of money off your hard work. But if you're a debut or an author that doesn't sell as well, they basically are like, yeah, you get 100k words to tell this story. Fuck you about getting a sequel. Generally speaking, wild-caught animals as pets. I had to go to the pet store today to buy some supplies, and was utterly horrified. Cages of wild-caught lizards, snakes, turtles, frogs and salamanders, many piled on top of each other and writhing around trying to escape. They all looked sick and stressed, and were being sold at impulse buy prices. Unfortunately, none of the species I saw have a protected status in this state, and all are considered fair game. But that doesn't make this right. I can guarantee that 90% of customers in that shop have no idea how to take care of such creatures. and the remaining 10% who do no better than to support their ongoing mass collection, unless you work for a professional conservation facility or animal rehabilitation center. Please leave wild animals in the wild.